Welcome to Design Muse Podcast, a podcast meant to inspire, educate, and advocate on all things commercial interior design. I am your co-host, Bridget Santos.
And I'm Melanie Hanna.
We are Design Muse Podcast. Welcome back to Design Muse Podcast. We are so excited to have our Muse of the Month, Alena Savera, with the NRP Group, join us for this episode. She joined the NRP Group in 2020 as a development associate, and she now serves as the Vice President of Development. Elena was the 2024 recipient of the prestigious Alan F. Scott Award, given to one exemplary employee at NRP each year. She is responsible for originating and overseeing market rate and PFC deals in the Dallas and Fort Worth markets. She leads projects through the entitlement and zoning process, and Elena helps build and foster relationships with local elected officials, landowners, brokers, and consultants. Elena graduated from the University of Texas at Austin with a Bachelor of Architecture. Welcome, Elena.
Thank you for having me.
We are so excited to pick your brain today about all things development. So to start us off, tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into development, where you started, and where you were so intrigued by this career path.
I think I've always been excited about buildings. Like even when I was young, my parents got me a book about Gothic architecture, and I'd like just sit and look at it and be like, if I had a house, I would have this like groin vault on my building, which I mean, I'm never going to have. Well, you never know, I guess.
Never know.
Gothic cathedral house. But I just really loved also like houses and specifically like apartments and hotels, and really liked the idea of creating places for people to live, but in a more urban setting. I grew up in the suburbs, so I was always fascinated with like living in a city and always dreamed of living in a city. So I think that's what drew me to apartments. I went to college and studied architecture at UT. And I remember day one, I was like, I love buildings, but I don't know if being an architect's right for me. And I stuck with it, and I still felt the same at the end of school. So throughout all my internships, I would sit in meetings with the developers who hired the architects as the clients. And so in every meeting I was with them, I was like, I feel like I think more like them. It's cool that they're over the design and also looking at the economics of the project and getting a zoning approval and where is the site going. So I think my passion for buildings was more from the very inception of why are you building there and what are you going to build there, but also, you know, appreciating the design as well. About a year after I graduated, I really tried to claw my way into the development space and worked at Streetlights, getting to kind of straddle development and design and getting to learn like how does design impact the Proforma and vice versa.
That is absolutely incredible to hear that at such a young age, you're interning and you realize, wow, what I've been studying for is related to what I want to do, but you might have not known exactly your intuition knew for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool. Tell us a little bit more about your Streetlights experience and how that catapulted you into the development side. Because it's a multifaceted role there, right?
It definitely felt like the kind of catalyst for the transition in my career, because I previously had only done initial design concept stuff when I was at Perkins & Will. So at Streetlights, my job was basically we had developers in every city. They'd bring us a site, and then I'd help plan out the whole building, whether it was a high-rise or a wrap deal or garden deal, thinking about like what do apartment renters look for, like where should we put the entrance, and then how much parking do we need, and how tall is the project, and what kind of design concept are we looking for. And so that really helped me understand, hey, a renter's going to want this kind of view, but this view translates into a premium in the rent. So I was always tracking the metrics of the project, and then they would take that and give me feedback on the Proforma. So I always felt like everything I was doing was kind of balancing that design and business standpoint, which is something I've always been fascinated with. So I felt like being in development was able to take my passion for design and my interest in how it impacts business as well.
And I do feel like a lot of designers get a bad rap on not being business people, right? Like it's either left brain or right brain. I'd like to think that I'm both sides of the brain too. And I love hearing that you can still be a designer and architecture design based, but you can still have another side and be multifaceted and want to go into a different side of the industry. For our listeners, we have a lot of students. We have a lot of young aspiring A&D people coming into the industry. And it's just always cool to note that there's so many options. You don't have to go work for a firm, or even if you do, like you did for a year and then had a little bit of a transition time doing both sides and then knew what you wanted to do. And I think that's important. Young designers, you don't have to know what you're going to do right this second, but you will, and you'll figure it out along your path. I want to get to finding the land, knowing, hey, this is a good site, this isn't a good site. I think as designers, it's important to know what our clients are looking for to better service our clients. So talk to us about the very beginning. You need to go find some land. What do you do? What are red flags? What are green flags? Tell us everything in your brain.
Sure. I think what I like about the position is that it is kind of like a science and an art. So because I have a design background, typically, not that I don't think data isn't important, but I think that at the end of the day, we're looking for renters. They don't always pick based on data. A lot of times it's, I love how this feels or this feels good. And so I think, we are in the business of curating places that make people feel good. So sometimes we can't, use data purely for that. So when I'm looking, I love renting. So I think like, would I rent here?
Mm-hmm.
Is this a place I'd want to be? Is this a place that people can find? And what are the views going to be like? What is it going to be like to come home after a long day of work? Do I work from home or do I work from the office? Do I have kids? So really thinking of like, who's the renter here? What are they looking for? And then we'll look at, I personally like to target specific markets because at the end of the day, it is a business. I have to be able to get something done. So, for example, we have 2 deals in Carrollton, and I really liked Carrollton because the rents were strong. So we'll look at different apartments in the area like, hey, they are getting $2,000 per unit. So that means that we could probably get $2,000 per unit. And, they've got a really strong location between like Dallas, the airport, Legacy West. And so really looking at how close are you to employment, how close are you to good schools, and how close are you to apartments that are getting good rent? Because if there's no new apartments in the area, I may love going to, building something new. And I don't know, like just thinking of a smaller city out more in the outskirts, you're kind of taking a gamble. And when we're not using just our money, we have to go find investors. These are like anywhere from like $50 to $100 million. And we have a lot of investors and lenders on the line that they don't want to risk their money. So you're always looking at how can I de-risk a deal by finding a site that will have a better chance of getting those returns, but also a place where renters want to live and everything. Once you find an area or find a site, then you reach out to the owner and start negotiating. And that's probably my favorite part is negotiating the land contracts.
I would hate to be negotiating against you. I want to hear what's the hardest thing about negotiating land. Do they just not want to sell? Do they not love that apartments would be coming? You hear that a lot. I know from some of my clients, they've actually gone door knocking to the people that they're buying the land and say, hey, I know you've lived here for 3 generations, but this is what we're wanting to build. This is what we're wanting, and we really care about the community. Is that an approach that you take, or how does that work?
Yeah, I feel like there's maybe 3 or 4 different aspects to my job that's like sales or negotiating. It's like 1, getting the seller on board, 2, getting our company on board, 3, getting the city on board, and 4, getting investors on board. I think those are the 4 things. If I can do that, I've got a deal. And if any of them say no, I don't. And obviously the seller is the biggest piece at the beginning, and the city as well. Those are the 2 that I'm really focused on. Well, with the landowners in the city, I always treat it like they're my business partner. I think a lot of people go in and they want to nickel and dime everyone. I usually am like, what do you need? What are your most important things? And let me see if I can do that for you. Here's what I can do. And a lot of landowners and cities have been burned by a lot of developers because the developers would push for certain things the city didn't want or try to nickel and dime in certain areas. And I'm just a big believer in we're all partners. I believe everyone can make a lot of money doing good work and enjoying the process. So I always try to make that commitment to the cities and sellers I worked with. So because of that, I find that the negotiations have gone more smoothly than I guess some have experienced. But I'd say the challenging piece is sometimes there's a lack of understanding of what apartments are and the cost to build them and just how hard it is to make a deal work. Because we'll have sellers that will say, well, the land, I want $10 million for it. I would love to give you $10 million. Like, I want you to be happy, but I can't afford to do that. Or a city will say, we want an Olympic-sized swimming pool and, 100% masonry. I'd love to give you that. If I was a resident, I'd love that. I can't make that work. So that's where I think design is so important because I think that when you do a good design, the city's happier. So when you're negotiating with them, they're more willing to do a deal if they see that you care about the city, you care about the impact. And I think that's why when I'm negotiating, I'm always like, well, let me understand what you need first before telling you what do I need. And I think that is the best way to start a negotiation.
That's a life lesson just for business in general, just coming in it, because it is a partnership at the end of the day. Even from your design consultants to the city, to the developer, everybody that touches the project. And when everybody's on the same page and communicates, it's a beautiful thing. And it goes so much more smoother.
I agree. I mean, I think your approach to it is what makes you so successful. So you found the land, you're going through negotiations, you have all 4 on board. When does the Proforma budget come into play? When do you start thinking about, now we need to bring an A&D team on, or have you already thought about it? Tell us a little bit about the timeline to get to that budget and be able to actually have it underwritten and start on the project.
As soon as I see some land that I'm even remotely interested in, we run like a basic input sheet where it's kind of like a condensed version of a Proforma, because a Proforma is like a really big Excel model. But in the input sheet, you can run through like, what do you think it's going to cost to build it? We have some general metrics as far as like construction pricing goes. And then we'll look at what are the rents in the area. We'll just see like, are we in the ballpark? So we have certain metrics that we need to hit to be able to move forward. So if I feel like I'm in the ballpark, then I'll move forward. And then as I get a site under contract, then we start spending money with our consultants to get some site planning done, do some engineering studies, and then we'll do another review in the Proforma with more detail and say, okay, now that we have more information, does it still work? We've had sites where the land was only $2 million. It was in a great location, rents were strong. And I was like, this is a home run. And then, we end up spending like $10,000 worth of design work. And we found that the land was actually a landfill, that the city had filled the whole thing. And it would cost $8 million to like remediate. Even if you feel like everything is working, you never know when something can go wrong. So you do have to spend money to figure out what's going on. And there is always a risk there. But yeah, you're always looking at the Proforma. You're always updating it. There's always things that can go wrong or happen. And sometimes we've had issues where the rents are strong and we can afford something nice. And then the rents drop 10% in the market. And so in an instant, you have to cut millions out of your design and thinking about like what matters, what doesn't. So you're always kind of balancing the rents and the cost. And those things are always moving too. It's never like a finite decision, I guess.
Right. And when you talk about the risks of bringing in an A&D team or an architect to study the site or whatever it is before you decide, tell us what that looks like that initial talk with the architect. What are they providing you? What are they giving you to make you feel more comfortable about moving forward?
I think the thing that we look for that we've had the most success with is when a designer is understanding of, we're a big company and we have process, so they're willing to work with our process, but also they have a good eye for design and they're willing to give some suggestions on things, but also they're okay if we want to move in a different direction or work with us. We're being collaborative, but also we want to lean on their design expertise. If it's leaning too far into, well, we're the designers and we know best, it's like, well, look, like I said, I'd love to do this $10 million chandelier, but we can't afford it. We struggle with that. And then also the other end where they're like, you tell us what you want. And it's like, no, we want you to give us your design feedback. So I've had some scenarios where I'm literally having to be the one designing it, which is fun. But at the end of the day, I really want to lean on our designers and know that they also can find a way to execute the vision that we have. So I think just that balance of the two and kind of getting that feel at the beginning.
So when you're looking at the Proforma, you're looking at a site plan or a site study. How do you determine very quickly a good, better, best scenario? Because a lot of times it depends on the market, right? It depends on when we're looking at like early planning for amenities, we're also looking at proximity principle. So how do you determine that and give that feedback to the design teams? Or are you relying on them to give that feedback?
So we typically do an overview of all the comps. That's what we call it. If I'm building an apartment, you kind of have to decide if there's 20 apartments in the area, which ones are the newest and which ones have the rents you want to aspire for and the closest and or most similar in product type. And then you look at, okay, what do they have and what are they pricing? My perspective is you always want to be at least meet what they're doing, but also look at the value. There's different amenities people have different opinions on. I personally think a golf simulator is something that you never see people using. I think it's expensive. It takes up a lot of space. It's kind of trendy versus something like, I think, work from home space and really nice gyms. I always think of like, what can the resident come here and say I'm getting value for? Someone's probably not going to use like a golf simulator or things like that as much, but a gym, people will go in there and say, I don't need a gym membership now. Okay, we can spend maybe an extra 20 grand in our fitness center and make it a little bigger. And now people are saying, oh, I don't need to go have a gym membership. So that adds a lot of value. I also think people are very big on dogs. So many more residents have dogs than children. So going really all out on your dog amenities, having a big enough dog park and spending money there, because I don't have to like go anywhere to take my dog somewhere. I can just walk downstairs and throw the tennis ball and there's room for them to run. So I think just making sure that the value of the amenities is there. And then within the units, looking at what do people really want. I'm a big stickler on backlit mirrors. I think it's a very small extra expense that really has that wow factor. But then also, if you want to stand out, I always try to think of what's one thing we can add that'll make us different than everyone else. And I think that's one thing that sometimes on the financial side is missed because they're like, well, there's no tangible benefit for adding this, or we don't know how to quantify it. But I always think what's something to stand out. If I'm looking for an apartment and I'm touring 10 different apartments, how do we make sure ours stays at top of mind? One thing we did in one of our projects is we put a Pilates reformer in there. No other apartment had that. There was a little bit of discourse on whether we needed it or not, but I was adamant, like, no, we need it. But it's been great because the leasing said that that's basically been signing leases for us because so many people are like, oh my gosh, I don't have to get an expensive Pilates membership. And so again, it just comes down to how do you add value to the resident.
For sure. It's like surprise and delight a little bit.
Yeah.
So when you walk in, and it could be something as simple that doesn't cost as much as like, okay, these special coat hooks, like in this special place because it was a thoughtful detail. And that's a really simple thing, right? It could be under cabinet lighting because some people, they just want to like, okay, that's going to get nixed from the project. But instead of doing pendants that are outdated in 5 years, like it doesn't fit your style. So keeping it where it can be adapted, where people can make it their own home is really important. But those thoughtful details and that layering of light, everybody wants hospitality. And we've talked about that a lot in our podcast. And it's funny because it's just what you said in the very beginning of this podcast. It's how people feel about the space. And we're in the business of making people feel at home or making them feel part of the community. And those special details are what makes it, for sure.
And I think it was really neat how you talked about kind of the balance of, you know, that these can be value adds, but they're not tangible evidence data based on a sheet per se, but it's going to make you different than the rest of what's around you. That gut feeling, is that just a decision you make during a presentation? Is that something that you're like, yes, we're going to add that. I know that adds cost. It's not technically line itemed, but I know it's going to bring enough value where it makes sense. How do you muster between, okay, yes, I'm going to do that, or no, we really need to stick to this line item pro forma? How do you make that decision?
I do think there's an art to it because every site's different. If I have a project that's in more of an outskirts town and it's more about a value play, then maybe we don't need to add all that. Sometimes it can feel like pretentious if there's too much fluff there. And so I think that you have to really think of like, who are the renters? In those situations, if it's really truly about value, they care more about, I want a clean, safe place to live and I don't want to pay more for all the bells and whistles. Versus another place, like if you're closer to Legacy West, you have to have the bells and whistles because you're being compared to 15 other apartments. And so you can do that by throwing more money and having more amenities, which again, we do, and we can do that. Or it can be more having like a story. What's the concept? Because you see so many places that are like, it's kind of the same finishes or it's kind of like the same neutrals. And I think I don't like to be scared of like telling a story. On one of our projects, we're near a train line. So we're really leaning into the nostalgia of train travel, like the theme, the brand, and all the interior design. It's all connected to that. And so I'm excited because that'll be memorable. I think it's more just a gut feeling. I go and tour apartments all the time just for fun to go see like what's new, what do I like, what do I not like, would I rent here? Do I think this is good value? Cheaper apartments or more expensive apartments. There's some high-rise apartments that are gorgeous, but I would never pay to rent there because I don't think the value's there. I think you really have to make sure that you're putting the value in and you have to go see it and really put your mind inside of who's actually leasing this and why are they leasing it. You'll always have people that want to pay top dollar to be in the nicest place, but I think you can't bank on that. So that's why I think providing value is so important, because you can capture a lot of people that think they're getting a bang for their buck, whether it's garden, wrap, high rise. Everyone's budget conscious now. So I think it's important to understand how you're adding value, but it's going to be different per site, per project, per market. So just being able to really understand who lives there, who's the market. Because again, it is a emotional thing when you go in and pick a home. It's where you're going to live, and people decide to stay living there, whether they feel comfortable there or not. So I think that's really important to me, to still maintain that connection as we're working on the project.
I have a question about going back to amenities and the value. I love the way you're thinking about, okay, if we had one Pilates performer in here, that's awesome. Or we have a gym, really great gym, and they're able to cancel that gym membership, and that's a value to them because they're saving money. What about the gift of time? Have you had any projects that are more like technology based or concierge based? And that is amenity, because it's not necessarily a physical amenity you're having there, but it might be a partnership. Have you seen any of those types of amenities?
That is something that I see on the property management side, because depending on who owns the project, they will provide certain services or not. I've lived in apartments where they have dry cleaning, and then a new buyer buys and they get rid of it. As we're designing it, you want to find ways to incorporate those things, but you also don't want to incorporate it and then it becomes maybe dated. I think that it's balancing, because technology is always moving so quickly. I remember we worked on a project and we're thinking of, okay, if Uber Eats is big, how could you maybe get it to where someone doesn't have to walk downstairs to get it and things like that. I don't think we ever solved that.
Right.
We're not having dumb waiters that are like taking the food straight up to the apartments. It'd be cool.
Be nice.
I've seen coolers in apartments.
I've
So
seen that.
or you'll end up having a grocery delivery service. And so it's almost like a food locker situation with a walk-in cooler. But then there's always the question of, how do we maintain this? Do they have access into it? Or does your management team have to deal with it? Or is it a physical locker that can be a hot box or a cooler? And so there's all kinds of crazy things out there. It's just been interesting to watch the industry pivot and see what's coming next.
That's what I think. There's also the value you have to have as a company. And is this that I'm implementing going to be worth the cost? And so that's where I think there are some things that look flashy and exciting, but it'll be interesting to see if they actually stick down the road. I think like smart thermostats are like a big thing people love. I love when I'm laying in bed, I can just be like, oh, turn the AC down.
Anything app-based, I think is great.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see, I think, with AI and with technology and trends. I don't really have a good answer for that. We're not doing... I don't see a ton in that, I guess. I don't know if I have a good answer for that.
Yeah.
So when you develop, do you guys manage your own properties, or do you hire outside management?
We do all development, construction, and management in-house.
Do you know when you're building it if you're going to sell or if you're going to hold?
Mostly when we do market rate deals, we do want to sell. Merchant build is the term where you build it and then you sell it to an owner. And so at that point, they can decide who manages their properties. So we manage it up until we sell it, but we do third party as well. So if someone wanted to hire us, they could and keep us on board, but they also don't have to.
Got it. That's neat. So what would you want to tell a design team about making your life easier, about giving you time back as a client and developer, and how we can be better on the A&D side to make sure that we're bringing the right things to the table?
Getting on the same page and getting consensus early on, day one, is important. I think finding like what's the concept, what's kind of the driving hypothesis for the project, and making sure everyone's on the same page, because I think that saves a lot of time and confusion down the road. And I think having this North Star that everyone's working towards is really important. That's something that I think has really helped on a lot of my projects, is also having options, I think, early on, like, do you like this or this or this, and why? And really understanding the why on it has been helpful. So I think getting some options, getting feedback, collaborating early on.
I feel like you've talked a lot about like partnership, not only with A&D, but with the city, with your own team, with, investors, with everybody. It just seems like you have a lot of people to answer to. The A&D side has a lot of people to answer to. And I think it's so insightful that people hear what it all takes to even get to a point to develop, to understand that there is this whole story, there is this whole picture that we need to be designing towards and to be a team on, because At the end of the day, I know for us, like I'm an interior design only firm. We're just a small piece of the pie, right? There's so much going to make the pie happen. And it's our job to do our part of the pie as good as possible to make sure the whole pie comes together. My next question would be, what makes you trust a design firm to hire them back to use them again? Is it kind of a relationship thing? Is it a team vibe thing? Is it I'm just used to these people and they're really good all together? What's that feeling of you hit the nail on the head with the team, architecture, design, MEP, it could be any consultant along the road?
At the end of the day, I want to work with people that see this as a craft. We're creating homes for people and to really have integrity with the work they're doing and care, because we are creating homes for people that are going to be in these cities long term. It's going to touch the lives of thousands, if not like tens of thousands of people. And I don't take that responsibility lightly. I think these aren't just assets on a spreadsheet generating cash flow. If someone wants to do that, they can invest in treasury bonds. But, we are creating homes. And I think it's really important that the people we're working with, that I think you can either really care about the craft of what you're working for or care about your ego. So I think really caring about the craft and taking responsibility there and prioritizing that over the glory and ego and money, because those things will come if you really care about the end product. And so I think that just working with anyone that when you're collaborating, it's okay if other people's ideas are better than mine, and sometimes maybe mine's better. And it doesn't really matter whose idea it is as long as the end result is there. So anyone that has that mindset is who we really like to work with. And the more we trust them, the more we're able to give them more latitude over the design. But yeah, it's really just a commitment to that craft.
And I think when it comes to the design teams all gelling together and servicing, the client, I think on our side, it's just important that we know that there's a lot of people the client answers to as well. So these decisions, like you said, don't have an ego. I think that's one huge thing in the design world, especially as an owner. I mean, your idea is definitely not always right. Everybody's bringing ideas to the table, but as long as you want to be a part of the team, you give good feedback, I think that's important for sure. Is there anything else about development that you would want to touch on in the podcast? Just about maybe woman in development, a little brief woman empowerment a moment?
Yeah, it's definitely been interesting being a woman in a very male-dominated role, because one thing I wish I could impart on women is I got a lot of bad advice before I got into it, like, oh, no one's going to trust you and all this stuff, or like, you should handle it fighting back. And I think the best advice I ever got was this woman who was like, hey, if anyone doesn't believe you, because you're a woman, like just ignore it. And I think that was literally the best advice, because for every 100 people that trust me, there's maybe one or two that don't like that I'm a woman doing it. And there's so many people that are supportive that you just kind of ignore the ones that don't. And I found that there's not really a clear path on how to be successful as a woman in it. So I kind of just figured it out on my own and trial and error. And I think having that approach where I treat everyone as a partner, where I'm like firm, like this is what's best for the project, but it's not about what's best for me. And I think people see that I care about what's best for them, and I'm trying to take care of everyone that I work with. And as a woman, you can stand up for yourself and not be called like you're too aggressive or too assertive. I think I've been able to maintain the integrity of the projects and still have a good relationship with everyone I've worked with. And I think before I was told that as a woman, that was going to be really challenging and everyone would think this about you. And I hear a lot of the negative sides of it. And I just want everyone to feel encouraged. It can be a positive experience, and there's going to definitely challenges along the way, but you don't have to act like a man, I guess, to do well. Like you can lean into being authentic. And I think the more authentic you are, the more warm you are with people, and they can receive that. And I think just being authentic and excited about the work, because at the end of the day, if you care about the gender or age or race of the person you're working with, you're really limiting your success. And the people who are successful, they will respect you, that you're helping them make money or helping them succeed. And they respect hard work because they've worked hard. I just feel like by focusing my energy on those types of people, it's helped a lot with just being a woman in the industry.
I love that. I love that.
One of the things that I think always comes up is as we grow in our career, how do you keep filling your cup from a professional development standpoint?
I mean, I try to treat my career as a craft. I don't even like calling it a career. I think it's my purpose on this earth is to create homes for people and to have a positive impact. If I don't know a piece of it, it's like I want to go learn about it. And every step is about honing in on that craft of creating housing for people that can't advocate for themselves. So I try to treat it as that. And I think by viewing it that way, it's helped me orient how I choose what to spend my time doing. So if I do something, is this helping me hone my craft? And if it's a no, then I don't do it. If it's like, oh, it'll make me feel good because people are clapping for me, I don't know. I've kind of let go of some of that. I really think just like learning, I am going back to grad school in the fall at SMU part-time. So that to me is I'm honing in on my understanding of the financial side because I've never had formal finance training. So yeah, I think it's going to be different for each person. I know people that are very involved in organizations. I was involved for a bit. I haven't been as much. And then just to keep myself energized, I like going to Mexico and sitting on the beach.
I love it.
You have to re-energize yourself.
You do.
You absolutely do.
Yes.
And you have to take that time. Our industry, commercial real estate, interior design, architecture, it is a grind sometimes.
Mhm.
I think we all have to remind ourselves we're all human in whatever role you're in, whether you're the intern or you're the CEO, and you need that time to fill your cup and do things that you enjoy. For me, I love painting. I know it sounds so random, but every time I especially go on a beach trip, I just sit out there with my coffee or my glass of wine and I like to watercolor. It's my thing, but you have to find those things that bring you joy. It's really cool. And I love that you described is not a career as a craft.
I know.
I haven't heard that before. I mean, I have, whether it's like maybe like a woodworker or something like that. But from a development standpoint, for you to call it a craft, it shows your passion. And it really, it exudes you. You know?
And I think you've shed so much light on the humanity behind development. You know, it can get sheets and numbers and papers and real estate, and we need to make this return, we need to do this, but you just bring such a human element to it that it's just a touch that it sets you apart from everybody else. And I love to hear it. We always like to kind of do a little bit of a closing for Design Muse podcast. We like to educate and advocate for commercial interior design. So as a real estate developer, what would you want to give to the next set of young developers coming in, maybe with an architecture background? Or what would you want to advocate or educate the newer class coming in about?
I think it's just listen to what do you really want. I think there's a lot of people that will give you advice on what they think is best, but the only person that knows is you. I didn't get licensed, and I had a lot of people telling me that was crazy, and people thought, I had people telling me you'll never be a developer for a slew of reasons, and I just kind of was like, well, I want to be one, and I'm stubborn, so I'm going to do it, and it's worked out well. Being true to what you really want, because you're the only one who has to live your life. And also, you may not know day one what you want to do. I think of it as every step in your career, it's a very pixelated image. And every step you take, it gets a little more clear. And sometimes the image becomes clear and you don't like it and you just shift. But every step in the right direction is a good step. If someone had asked me my senior year of high school, you're going to be an apartment developer and really like it, I never would have expected that, and my career has moved in ways I didn't expect. But I think just embracing some of the serendipity of life, but also staying true to what you want is going to be the best way to be happy with your career. And don't be afraid to make a change and to do what's best for you, because every company you work for, every person you talk to they're going to be looking out for themselves. So you got to look out for yourself.
We were never taught how to, like the owner, architect, contractor, client, we never were taught that.
Who your clients are going to be, whether it's you're in office and it's the broker or the tenant or the project manager or the developer. No one that I remember sit down and told me, these are going to be your types of clients and here's how you're going to serve them differently too, because everybody needs something a little bit different in each sector, right?
Yeah. Did you always know that development was an option even in school?
Didn't know. I didn't really understand the industry. I think growing up, no one in my family was in architecture. Same. So my family heard I liked buildings and they're like, buildings architects. And I didn't really know any different. And when I went to school, I have a little bit of an issue with design school or architecture school and interior design schools, because I think it really does send the wrong message to students of what the industry is going to be like. I'm lucky that I got internships every year of school, and I started to see the writing on the wall of what it was really like, because they educate you in a way that you're the smartest person in the room. You know better than everyone. Design matters and money's evil and I know better. And I think it's like great to be confident in your design, but I think it's missing, if you understand budget and like zoning and like what the developer wants and economics and understand the context of what you're designing in, you can actually design something that's great because you're using those constraints on how can I be creative with this. But I see a lot of now everyone's like mad, oh, I have to stick to a budget, or oh, the developer wants this. And I'm not going to say there aren't developers that only care about budget, but I just think it's doing a disservice to design students because I never got any exposure to that. If anything, we had a developer come into one of our classes and there was a student in our year that just would walk out every time because he was like, I'm not listening to money hungry people.
Gosh.
So I think that there is this animosity between, and I love that I can like kind of bridge the two because I do think both are important. But yeah, in school, I just felt like it was very much just design matters more than anything. And now like I see a lot of my classmates that are unhappy with the industry and seeing that like the way it really is, because I'm lucky I got that exposure in school interning because it was like every year I was like, this is not like what school's telling us. So yeah, I wish we got more exposure. And I've even thought of going back and being like, hey, everyone, like you don't have to just
be scared of
do
me.
this one path or something.
Yeah. I'm sitting here thinking I would love to have a think like an owner class. That you have to go through that semester and you have to think like an owner. You have to put a Proforma together because the best designers, the best architects, they do think like an owner. And somebody very early in my career told me that you will be successful if you can build valuable, authentic relationships. Just be yourself. I struggled with, hey, I was the only woman in the room sometimes. And with a bunch of architects, we worked at a small firm and there was maybe a handful of us, and so, but that experience actually taught me to just lean in and to think about all the different parties, whether the consultants too, that we're working with. Everybody makes the project valuable and that expertise is bringing that to the table. But if you can be empathetic towards everyone that you're working with, it can make a great project. But I would like to see that. Think like an owner. Maybe we can advocate for that.
Yeah.
I don't know. We might get wrapped into teaching it.
I know.
That's another thing.
We have had to teach a class.
Yeah. It was fun.
Well, we are so happy that you came on today. I feel like it was so insightful to hear about the beginning stages of a project, have our listeners understand the humanness behind development. But thank you so much for your time, and I hope you had a blast.
I did. Thank you so much for having me. It was great.
Well, until next time, toodaloos.